Thanks very much. It's a pleasure for us to be here. Good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon, Lieutenant Governor. Let me introduce myself. My name is John Rose. I'm the General Manager and Head of Huawei Technologies in North America. I want to take 2 seconds to comment on something the Lieutenant Governor said, that we have a huge obstacle here in California to change the business climate, to get from 50th or 47th to something better. And that's a very noble task and something that we have to accomplish. But then the question becomes, why are we all here if it's so bad? And but I'll tell you, as the optimist in me says, there's something very good about California. In fact, there's something great about it, which is this is by far the best place globally to do innovation in new ecosystems and new environments. And from Huawei's perspective, we have taken advantage of that dramatically. In the last 18 months, we have not only moved our R&D headquarters from one of the states that the Lieutenant Governor mentioned to Silicon Valley, but we've also expanded our staff here from a few hundred to, by early next year, over 1,000 senior technical staff working in this environment. So we're extremely excited to be here, and we're looking forward to anything that can make expanding it to the next 1,000 even easier. Okay. So, with that, it's my pleasure to introduce the next panel. Obviously, it's a collection of both public and private sector individuals. I think you know most of them, but for the formality, we'll go through the introductions. First and foremost is the Honorable Chuck Reed, the Mayor of San Jose. Kate Collier of Bank of America Merrill Lynch and also the San Diego Regional Economic Development Corporation. Tarkan Maynor, our host from Wise Technologies. Eddie Northen from UPS and the Orange County Business Council. Dean Steve Carell from UC Davis Graduate School of Management. And obviously Lieutenant Governor Gavin Newsom. And finally, I'll turn it over to our moderator, Andrew Ross from the San Francisco Chronicle.
Thank you, everyone. And thank you for the invitation to come here and moderate this panel. I have read the report. Actually, in fact, I read it a couple of times because that's part of my job. I think it's a terrific report. I think it's very, very much well worth your reading. There's a lot of really good, hard data in there. Some suggestions, and as the Lieutenant Governor said, there's also an action plan, so you can hold his feet, or whoever's in charge of this going forward, their feet to the fire. If I had one criticism to make, Lieutenant Governor, the type for people of my age was just a little small. That's all. I had to put on my reading glasses. What I've heard in the first panel, and as a reporter, I shouldn't be too shocked. I meant to be sort of cynical, and also, of course, as you know, journalists and the press isn't always the kindest to business and CEOs. We sort of do the best we can. I think we do the best we can anyway. But I was actually really quite startled, I have to tell you, at what appears to be a complete absence of interest on the part of a number of state agencies and state figures to the issues and the potential that confronts you all here today. I was really, really quite shocked at that. And if there's one thing that this plan can hopefully do is to put, I guess, certain implements up certain rear ends on the state level to get things going, because the state clearly does have a major role to play. And so some of the questions that I'm going to ask the panel are similar to the questions that were asked of the private CEOs. I can't promise to be quite as accomplished as Carl. I never took walking around the room lessons, and sticking a mic in some unsuspecting person's face. So I'm probably not going to do that. Carl might want to do that and interrupt me, and that's okay. The first question is, and I'm going to direct it, I think, to you, Eddie, to begin with, from Orange County. What can the state do to promote job growth and retention, specifically within your city, region, or industry cluster?
Well, first, I think that Orange County, as everyone may or may not know, is the 6th largest county in the U.S., and we've had the 3rd lowest unemployment rate throughout this whole recessionary time across the nation. So I think we have some good things going on in Orange County that I think we'll be very happy to share with your group as we're moving forward. But I think the number one thing that I take a look at, and I'm in the transportation side with UPS and then with the Orange County Business Council, is I look at California as being geographically challenged. And by that I mean when we're talking about manufacturing, obviously we're on the left coast, and as we all know, the majority of the population is more towards the other coast. So when we kind of have strike one to start with, when you talk about manufacturing or moving goods or things like that, then you have to be that much better for companies really to want to manufacture and continue to do those things here. So I would say that, and it was discussed on the earlier panel, taking a look at any new legislative action, taking a look at the business perspective of that has to be first and foremost. You have to cut the faucet off from the different regulations that are out there that are keeping companies from wanting to be involved in California. I think you have to cut the faucet off. Then I would urge just going and taking a look at the existing regulations that are out there and going through and seeing what can we do to help expedite in different areas, especially financing, things like financing. Taking those decisions down to the local level, to the county level, to the city levels, that could help expedite different projects and get those projects moving faster in order to be able to go through and make things better. You know, Lucy Dunn, the CEO of OCBC, says snowflakes, the regulations are kind of like snowflakes. Individually, they make sense and they're pretty, but then when they all mound up together, it can become an avalanche. And unfortunately, I think that's kind of the place where we are right now. But I think in addition, I think exports, which are highlighted in the report, I think having a concentration on exports and our capabilities here in California absolutely makes sense, and that's something that we should be able to go through and make good gains with.
Bringing it to the hometown, Mayor Reed, what would you like to see the state do for San Jose and the region?
Thank you. Well, there are many things the state can do, and this report's a great start. I want to thank the Lieutenant Governor for taking on this task. I didn't think he could find a job more important than being mayor of San Francisco, but this might just be it. So it's a very important thing, and thanks for taking it on. I want to acknowledge I have a couple of council members here today, Councilor Sam Liccardo, who spoke earlier, Councilor Rose Herrera, who chairs our Economic Development Committee. We in the city of San Jose are very engaged in economic development. We're pleased to have net job growth in this city and this region over the last months and months now. That's a big plus. That's not a lot of job growth, but positive is so much better than negative. So we're doing some things right here. The one thing that the state could do, the specific thing out of hundreds probably, is to back off on the effort to kill redevelopment agencies. One of the few tools that we have at local government, it's not just San Jose, but around the state, has been redevelopment funding to do that. And if they're going to take away redevelopment funding, well, then we have almost no tools. So we need something out of the state government in the way of tools that we can work with. As you can see from the report, when we look over our shoulders and hope the state is going to be there with the posse, there's no posse. Unlike other states where the state, the regions, and the local government are organized and coordinated. That's why this effort that you're leading, Gavin, is so important. We need to have that posse. We all need to be moving in the same direction. And it's just great to note that I have never met a politician of any of the parties in California who didn't think that having more jobs and economic development wasn't a good idea. So why can't we do it? And I think we will.
Thank you. Kate Collier from San Diego Economic Development Council. What can the state do for your region and your town?
Yeah, great. Thank you. Is this on? San Diego, like our counterparts here up in the Bay Area, we benefit from a lot of the high growth and innovation clusters and sectors as well, life science, telecom, technology, wireless, and emerging industries like clean tech. And where we can really benefit in San Diego and in our greater region, what we call our mega region, is for the state to help us eliminate roadblocks, regulatory and tax issues that are obstacles in preventing growth in projects, ground-up projects in these industries, as well as attracting companies in these industries to our region. And two examples: one, failure to attract a publicly traded company to San Diego in the technology space from the state of Illinois. The state of Illinois actually was very, very coordinated in its efforts, not just with economic incentives, but the state public-private coordination effort to retain that company. And it was really, really masterful to see the job that they did. And they were able to dollarize a package for that company. Interestingly, the CEO actually and his family still lives in San Diego, so it wasn't compelling enough. From a clean tech standpoint, I know the earlier panel, we spent time talking about permitting. It's a huge obstacle, and clean tech is such a big, riveting part of this economy. In our region, we had a loss of a significant 900 megawatt solar project due to many years of going through a permitting process, but not just the permitting process, it was also the layering of other lawsuits from environmental, labor, and tribal challenges or tribal organizations as a result also. And so it wasn't just the permitting piece, it was also some layering effects, and that's where I think the state can play a role with this new vision.
Steve Carroll from the UC Davis Graduate School of Management. There's a lot of talk in the plan, and Lieutenant Governor has talked about this being very much of a bottom-up affair, that a lot of the energy and a lot of the drive has to come from cities. That's where the jobs are. That's where a lot of the crucial decisions are made. There's also talk of regional clusters. Looking at that, looking at it on that sort of more regional basis statewide, again, going back to that question, what can the state do to promote job growth and retention within this context of the energy comes from localities. The engine comes from regionalization. It's not just going to be some sort of a top-down affair. What can the state do to sort of help that process forward?
Well, terrific question. Thank you, Andrew. And just want to say that really thrilled to have moved to Northern California in 2009 from London, and I can assure you that there's nothing like this environment that we have today in London or after 17 years of living in Texas or in Texas either. So delighted to be here and really energized by the Lieutenant Governor's plan. We were fortunate enough yesterday at the board meeting of the Bay Area Council to get a preview from him, and so we enjoyed that as well. And I'm really delighted to comment on the cluster theme because I think it's absolutely critical. And if one reads the report carefully, one sees a significant emphasis on regional clusters. It also talks a lot about universities and higher education. And so if Lieutenant Governor would permit me, I'd like to press you a little bit more to think about the intersection of regional clusters and universities. Let me give you a few facts that you may know already, but if you don't, you might find interesting. There's an organization called the Association of American Universities. It's the top 59 universities in the U.S. And guess which state has the most members of the AAU? It is California. There are 9 members of the Association for American Universities here in California, and it's really unprecedented strength in higher ed. And it's not just the research-intensive universities, it's the genius and the beauty of the Cal State system as well as the community colleges. And that whole three-pronged stool of the UC system, Cal State, and community colleges is really the envy of everybody in the nation. It has really been an extraordinary engine of economic prosperity and upward economic mobility for our students. Great opportunities to participate in excellence in higher ed, as well as affordability and access. And we hope that if you can put in a word with the governor to see more of the return on investment of higher education, we would love to receive fewer cuts. We just got cut $650 million, which is very painful for us, but it's making us more efficient, and that's probably a good thing. So, Andrew, to come back to the point, I want to talk about university enterprise zones. And I want to challenge the Lieutenant Governor to think about how to organize enterprise zones around universities. If you look at the history of high-tech growth and the proliferation of high-growth, high-job-creating companies, you look at Silicon Valley, of course, is the origin of it's most often cited, but look at Research Triangle Park in North Carolina, Austin, Boston, and others. It's the story of building regional clusters around universities. And so I want to challenge the Lieutenant Governor to think more deeply about how to organize the plan in a way where these university enterprise zones are organized around our great institutions of higher ed in California.
Great. Tarkan Maynard, you've heard from public officials and public policy people and academics. If you were advising local officials telling them, here's what I think you ought to do if you want to get the state more involved in my area to encourage jobs and competitiveness? What would you tell them? What would you advise them to go ask for?
So, first of all, I just want to thank again one more time the Lieutenant Governor and the state for starting with this kind of a program. This is not just the first meeting. We had meetings like this in the clusters for the past 6 months. That's the beauty of this thing. We've been having these kind of debates, what goes, what right, and some of the meetings were pretty interesting. People are interrupting each other, going very passionate. I'm not going to give you all the details openly, but we had some heated discussions. Honestly, in this entire room or tent, probably I'm the most, the guy with the least request from the government. We are basically looking for a little bit of help in direction, but not necessarily we're expecting the government to do everything for us. We're low maintenance people. As the private sector, especially in information technology space, we are growing already. One area that I'm going to disagree, location-wise, geography-wise, we are in a bad place. I completely disagree with that. California is in the best place. As the innovation, economic velocity is moving to Asia, we are the capital of the world when you think about it. And you look at
my comment was for manufacturing and that, not innovation. I agree with innovation. Mine was for manufacturing and moving of goods.
Even in that, believe in yourself. I'll tell you, California is in a beautiful place. I travel the world, I'll tell you. The things, the resources, the assets we have is unbelievable. The need we have is streamline these resources, put the right process in place, and take it to the next level. When we run a business, we focus on 3 things. Customer intimacy, IP innovation, operational excellence. Those are the 3 things that we run a business on. The same thing applies to a government. Change the words. Customers become citizen, operations become maybe a different kind of word you want to put, like processes and so on, politics and so forth. And I know Lieutenant Governor can come up with those things and apply it nicely to the government. What we're looking for is not necessarily specific items here. At the end of the day, in order to be more successful, we're looking for better educated people, number one. Someone said about the higher education and K-12, we definitely agree. There's a lot of work going on right now in San Jose. I think John Porter was here, who's the CIO at the Franklin McKinley School District, one of the poorest school districts in the state. We're working on some processes on Education Cloud. What the government did to us, they came and talked to us what their needs are. That's what we need. Tell us, communicate to us what the needs are. We can come up with the solutions. We can bring the right vendors, right places, right processes together to make that happen. In that context, all we need is better partnership between public and private entities. We don't need necessarily to do stuff from the government. We are the doers. Just help us out with the policy. On that note, a couple other areas, like the transportation. What we've done here in the Silicon Valley is helping us for some of the interns coming from Stanford or Berkeley, taking the BART, take the train, coming down, hugely important to us, public transportation. That kind of work helps us. Beyond that, we can pick the ball and run with it with the rest. Just bring the ball all the way to 50 yard. From the 50 yard, let us deal with it and let us run with the ball. So on one other area is important, obviously, in my opinion. This is a little bit also federal government, but the reliable banking system is hugely important for the startups to move faster. They hire a lot of people. We are lucky again here in the Valley. We have the best financial system with the VCs, with the private equity, with the banks, and so on. So the system is already moving. The velocity is there. We just want to make sure it doesn't stop. That's why we're praying right now. These guys in DC pass the bill, so things moving forward. We have the money for the, to pay for this. That just don't slow down the process. So from a state level, from the local level, we're getting a lot of help, and we appreciate that. Just continue to communicate to us so we can lead by example from here, from the Valley, the rest of the state, and the rest of the nation. And I'll tell you one more time. I just mentioned that some people don't pay attention to this. Other countries are asking us, what are you guys doing in Silicon Valley? We just came back from Beijing, State Grid, the #1 grid company in the world, 2 million employees. The CEO is asking us, what are you guys doing with PG&E and the government? What are you doing in the state of California? We want to follow your lead. We have the answers. We just need to get the answers promoted and communicated at the same time.
Lieutenant Governor, what you've heard, any reaction from what you've heard from the panel?
I think it's important, we're so good at beating ourselves up. The old saw, you're nothing but a mirror of your consistent thoughts. Whatever you focus on, you tend to find more of. And what's happened is we become so pessimistic in this state, it's worse than cancer. And in a pessimistic environment, what happens? And I heard the issue is 8-hour work days, 40-hour work weeks. I heard the issue of CEQA and everything else is you hold on to your trophies. You hold on to what you've got because it's a shrinking pie in a pessimistic environment. It's a zero-sum game. And that's what we have, everybody holding on to what they've got. We've got to change, again, the attitude. Do not underestimate. You know, I heard it all day. Just return a call, act like you give a damn, dialogue with it. What's that cost you? I used to say a dime to make a call. McNeely will tell you it's not even close to that at AT&T anymore. I mean, some of this is not that complicated. And the reason we don't get things done in government is we overcomplicate everything. And so I just think, you know, there's a theme here that of just leadership in the basic sense that's important. And just to back up, I do want to give some consideration. There are a lot of great people in Sacramento trying to do great things. You know, Speaker Perez has been very aggressive on these things, and he's actually the one that's got the bill to help us with this reorganization so that it lands on the governor's desk as early as September. We're not waiting till next year. I mentioned Darrell Steinberg, but let me mention Dan Logue. I mean, I did everything to vilify Dan Logue, who is up in Sacramento. He's the one who sponsored. He has a different point of view on AB 32. He was the one who sponsored Prop 23. I ran for lieutenant governor to make sure that we were successful in defeating 23. But you know what? He's the one who invited me to Texas. And he's the one with the Republican caucus that's got 30-plus bills in the hopper. They're on the offense, and they deserve recognition and credit. It's all about getting it over the finish line. It's not good intentions. It's just getting things over the finish line. And so the entire predicate of this is how we together actually deliver on these promises, as opposed to, once again, run that 90-yard dash.
Yeah, and I think my point, and I think the point of the CEOs in the last panel was, it seemed to me that that interaction or lack of interaction with state agencies, perhaps more than with elected representatives on a local and state level. But actually, let me raise that question, because this brings the broader question about what the state can do more generally for job growth and retention. I mean, are you getting enough? We do have elected representatives. They are being paid. Are they hearing you? Is there a connection between the legislature and the needs of localities going forward? Mayor Reed, how would you characterize your relationship on that particular aspect?
We have excellent relationships with the individuals in Sacramento, and I have never met anybody up there who wasn't dedicated, hardworking, and cared about the state. But we have a system that is often dysfunctional and frequently broken, and that's just one of our problems. This plan is an effort, I think, to get around that. So it's not the nature of the individuals, it is the problem, is the process in Sacramento. So I've often been critical of Sacramento. I've been quoted many times, because I've said it many times, that the greatest threat to the future of Silicon Valley is the state of California. And all of the reasons that we're here is to avoid what's already happening, which is this great job-creating machine that we had is no longer creating jobs. The malaise that we have is a result of decades of drifting. And this is an effort to turn it around. But it's not really about the people. It is about the system and the process, and this is a way, I think, to try to get around that. And I commend the Lieutenant Governor for taking it on.
So, Kate Collier, does the state lead, follow, or get out of the way?
Lead.
And again, how? Just... Oh, maybe I should do a round robin first. How many people vote for lead?
Hybrid.
Or follow?
Hybrid approach.
You mean what are we currently doing? Or?
No, I mean, what should the state be doing to help? Lead, follow, or get out of the way, and just let others deal with this?
Well, I think it's a combination of leading as well as getting out of the way for the things that are working. We don't want to break something that's working, certainly. In terms of the relationships that we have, you know, with state representatives, again, I think back to it's not personal, right? But we're looking for leaders that can be catalysts for change and can get involved in helping make change happen. And so when it comes to public-private partnerships, I think those are the things that work very, very well. For example, in San Diego, I'll use UCSD as an example. That's a phenomenal university where the public-private partnerships have worked, and we've spun out hundreds of companies out of UCSD, which translates to jobs, which translates to revenue, which translates to a tax base. So that's an example of leading as well as getting out of the way when something's working. So.
Andrew, can I comment on the
please
public-private partnership? And I want to pick up on what Kate said. There has been no public research university that has had a faster rise in visibility in the rankings than UCSD. And why is that? The history is of collaboration between Chancellor Atkinson and the local business community to build that cluster. And it's exactly what we were talking about a minute ago. That's one of the great clusters in the world, and it was about public-private partnership between the university and the business community. So I just want to highlight that.
Let me add one other thing. Sometimes in these discussions, there are skewed answers. The reason is, from an information technology perspective, in the Valley, I think we're enjoying a phenomenal growth. I mean, we're one of those companies. We've been growing 100% year over year the last 2 years. This company's been around for 30 years. Social media, cloud, virtualization, mobility. I mean, look at the numbers with Zynga, with Facebook, with LinkedIn, with Google and Apple and Wise. We're hiring. We cannot find people. Our issue in this specific region and in our specific vertical industry, we cannot find people. Speaking of jobs are moving away. Josh, where are you? Come over here for a second. This guy, Josh, how are you? 18, 17, 19? You know what? I cannot find people, okay? I have to go Palo Alto, sit in a Starbucks on University Avenue, look for people to hire. Whenever I find a kid in an AC/DC shirt, not taking shower for 3 weeks, I know these guys working hard. This guy just took a shower for this meeting. Josh, like 1 minute, tell me about your story. Where are you guys from? What are you guys doing here?
Sure, we're from the East Coast. 4 guys packed up our stuff and flew to Palo Alto in a studio apartment on airbeds, living the dream, making it happen.
1 room, 1 bedroom.
1 bedroom, but it's all good. So Chirp Me. The name of our company is Chirp Me. I'm one of the co-founders. The rest of the guys are up there in the corner. So next big thing to hit Silicon Valley. Got Tarkin Manor behind us. Couldn't have asked for anyone better. So Chirp Me. Chirp Me is an activity-based dating platform where you find matches based on activities you want to experience. Wine tasting, that cool new restaurant, or even test driving exotic sports cars together. So how it works is, say you want to go wine tasting in Napa. We'll provide you a package to do that.
Taking those right now. Taking it around.
We'll sign you up an account after. Promise to hook you up. But so say you want to go wine tasting in Napa, we'll provide you a package to do that. And also we'll provide you someone to go with that also wants to do that. But in addition, they're a perfect match for you. So it's very contextual. In addition to that, for those of you who are already in relationships and you're having all those boring date nights, we'll keep your relationship fun and exciting through awesome dates. And to learn more and hear more about this, we're going to be announcing, we have some amazing seed investors that we'll be announcing along with a really revolutionary product announcement, and we'll be announcing that at 500 Startups, which is Dave McClure's program at Demo Day in August 15th, so you can learn more then. Thank you.
I'll tell you, don't move. I created a monster, I'll tell you. When I met these guys, 4 guys building this business, interest to me was, I look always for angel investment opportunities. I'm talking to them, coming from UConn, right? You guys went to university in Connecticut? From Connecticut. Yeah. Moved here, starting a business, looking for seed money. And the first question I was asking, do we have developers? They have 1 developer. The guy is from Florida or wherever he is from. They cannot find people to work on mobile platforms. And I need mobile platforms. I was going to hire these guys through Wise, and I cannot because they're going crazy. They're in a stealth mode, not anymore. So my answer to you, Andrew, innovation and velocity is already there. We cannot find people. Education needs to step up. We still don't have kids coming from K through 12 who understand math. We need to get these kids to the higher education. We have great schools, great universities. Government can help on that, not necessarily from a financial perspective. Vendors can help in that process with the financial help and so on. We're doing that here in San Jose. The reason I asked the mayor to join us every time we get a chance, we need to promote the story. How can we make that happen between the private and public partnerships? And I don't think we have done enough over here in the state. Let me give you one last example as a specific one. In many countries right now, government is giving tax breaks for companies to start large data centers to deliver government clouds for healthcare, for education. Right now, as we speak, there's an education cloud taking place in the UK, in Indonesia. Why not here? We should be leading that effort. There are still kids without any internet access, without a computing device. We can make that happen right now. It's not hard to do, and we have the innovation here and the people here. We just need to move it next level. And I think this program, this agenda, is going to help us out to execute on that.
I think that WISE might be a candidate for your Jobs and Competitiveness Council, I have a feeling. Eddie, do you want to add anything about just one last roundup on the state, just the state in general, and what it can do?
Well, I'm going to take the side of lead, and I'm going to say lead from the perspective of creating a business-friendly environment. And I think if they have that mindset to be able to do that, then I think we can move things forward. I mean, Lieutenant Governor, I think you're a little bit of the minority as far as some of the electeds that we have in Sacramento. A lot of them have not actually been in business, have not actually run a P&L. And so when they look at things, as they need to from the constituency standpoint, but they have to be able to do it from a business mindset if we're going to get this turned around. You get it. You've done all of that. You understand, and that's the reason why we're here where we are today. But I think they have to lead from that perspective, and they have to be able to do it with that business mindset. It doesn't mean run government as a business. It just means to use the business principles and economic principles when making decisions and making decisions to be able to move our state forward.
Good, thanks. Getting on to other states now, similar to the question raised with the first panel. Based on what other states you've visited or practices you've heard about in other states in terms of creating jobs and retaining jobs, Mayor Reed, if I can come to you first, any one or two examples of things that you've seen elsewhere that you like, you think we should adopt?
I see other states when they come to take our companies away. And I don't like it, and it's something we have to compete not just against other states but against other countries. So we are very proud in San Jose to export jobs to the rest of the country. We're just not happy about it. And when I am competing with one of our competitor states, and the Lieutenant Governor mentioned most of them, or some of them, I'm competing against another city, but that city usually has a partner. In the competition, it's the state government. And whether it's Oregon or Arizona or Texas or some of the states like Texas and Arizona that have created a lot more jobs than we did in the last decade. I think our net in the last decade was 0. So the state is there. When we are trying to make sure that one of our companies that wants to stay here, can stay here, wants to grow here, or does grow here, it's basically us. As I said earlier, there's no posse. It's whatever we can put together at the local level with 0 help from the state of California in most cases, not in all cases. So the state doesn't have many tools either, as is obvious by this need for this report. But there are things that other states do besides money, and a couple of those have been mentioned here earlier. It's not about giving money to companies. It's how about not taxing investment in equipment. Well, we're one of the few states, I don't know if we're the only state, we were one of 3 that has a sales tax on investment in manufacturing equipment. Fortunately, we got a little bill through the legislature with the help from a lot of people to have some exemptions for clean tech manufacturing equipment. That's a start. But it ought to be any manufacturing equipment. If we want middle-class jobs, we need to do manufacturing. And we got to deal with that.
You raise actually a good point. You mentioned it's not just states, it's cities too that are competing. And I think Denver, for example, has its own pretty aggressive economic development operation going. I mean, I don't know if there are other cities that anybody wants to talk about in terms of being models on the local level, but again, just either cities or states that are doing things that it's worth cities here looking at and the state looking at as well. Do you want to chime in?
Yeah, well, I'll go back to my original statement of the snowflakes that Lucy uses as her example. I mean, there are so many regulations in place that I think it really burdens overall companies making decisions. But if I had to point to one thing which was mentioned on the first panel, I would say the workers' compensation. I would say for the small to medium-sized business, for the small business owners, sometimes workers' compensation costs and potential increases can be the difference in them being in and out of business. And from a UPS perspective, we have a lot of customers that we work with and deal with, and we find and see that a lot of our customers are adding temporary employees when they are in a situation where they need to add. They're not adding full-time employees, and the primary reason is because of workers' compensation and the concerns over the costs related to that. I know a couple of states that do a very good job with that. We've mentioned one earlier today. I won't keep mentioning that one. Arizona also does a nice job with that. So that might be something else to go through and take a look at.
Thank you. Kate?
Yeah, well, the example I mentioned earlier, just the state of Illinois, certainly it wasn't only the economic tools that they had to offer, but I think it was the collaborative effort from both the public sector as well as the private sector in order to retain that company. I think it's really critical for us to understand what our competitive strengths are and where the gaps are, and the gaps being certainly tax issues, regulatory issues, and then things like permitting processes, and then being able to dollarize that, because I think that's where we fall down. And if we can streamline that and then put a dollar attached to that, not only could that help attract, but it could also help retain. And sometimes we lose focus on the retention of companies and get so focused on growing new ones and attracting new ones, but retaining them is just as important.
Yeah. Let me give you also one other example on that, Andrew. I think this is related to that. Again, I don't want to bore everybody else with, again, IT and education, but it's our passion. One of our customers was a very poor school district in Illinois, actually near Naperville, not in Naperville, in a poor part of the state. 2,000 students, they could not afford PCs. They could not afford infrastructure. And kids are not connected to the internet. Poor families at home, they don't have also internet access. So we brought in a few other vendors from the Valley. Cisco was with us, Civic was with us. We went in and provided a cloud for this school district, a school actually, small school. And now they went to the school district at 30,000 unit level. Now the governor's office is calling us and going, can we create a new education cloud for the entire state called Illinois Cloud? And actually they're running on that platform with that brand. Now they're making that brand right and bringing the vendors like us in. They're giving us real estate for us to build a data center for that cloud. They're going to hire people. They're going to pay the people with our money. Public-private partnership at its best. Students win, families win, vendors win, and the state wins. And they're hiring people, and the middle-class families are now sending their family members as the employees for that big data center which they didn't have. And in my opinion, as California, we can become the data center for the world, for the nation, for many different industries, healthcare, education, they're all part of that. And actually, we've been discussing some of these obvious opportunities with the Lieutenant Governor over the past 6 months.
I want to just follow up, actually, on technology, because there's a mention in the report about a California government app store, which is very interesting. And we're seeing more and more of this in localities. So to talk a little bit about that, if you can, Governor Newsom, and also Lieutenant Governor, not Governor yet, Lieutenant Governor Newsom. But also,
Jerry to get out of the state.
So possibly just a little bit more on the role of technology in general, because I don't know that states and localities perhaps are using technology in the way that they could. The technology is out there, but you don't get the sense it's being really used adequately. And again, if we're all in this together, what is it that technology, information technology can do, for localities, for development councils, for cities, and for the state to really help in this drive?
Do you want me to take that very quick? I don't want to dominate, but Lieutenant Governor, do you want to go first? Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Okay, all right.
You paid for this mic.
Look, I'm going to oversimplify and dumb it down. How many drop calls do you have from San Jose back to San Francisco on one-on-one? Please raise your hand. 5, 10, 7. I cannot have one conference call uninterrupted. This is the Valley. 4, thank you. Appreciate that. We cannot have one call uninterrupted in Silicon Valley between San Francisco and San Jose. So from a network and infrastructure perspective, there are opportunities for private-public partnership. Government app store is a great idea. I think there are opportunities for the government services to be delivered that way. Again, I'm going to harp on that again. On the data center front, we have tons of opportunities because that means we can build it, we can hire people, and we can deliver services and applications for the citizens from here. And it's going to impact, and it's going to have a multiplier effect for the economy.
Steve, I want to just come to you on the role of technology in this, if you could say so. I've got about 2 minutes left, so But you want to say something about technology?
Well, I'll just very quickly say that we're being very aggressive in the University of California to try to use technology to make higher ed available to a broader audience. And I'll just say one other very quick point, and it comes back to a theme that I know the Lieutenant Governor knows very well, and that is there has to be a role for organized labor in this plan. And one thing, anecdotally, I'll share with you from 12 years in Houston, there's a lot of the petrochemical industry there is heavily unionized, but I've observed a much more favorable relationship between organized labor and business to try to create high-paying, high-wage, high-quality jobs. And I know the Lieutenant Governor is going to bring them into the conversation as well.
Okay. I want to come back then to that issue of education, because there was a lot of talk about higher education and what's going on with that. But in your plan, there's a tremendous emphasis on manufacturing. It's manufacturing in small businesses. High tech that's not what California is simply all about. There's more to it. There's basic manufacturing going on as well. And there is a shortage of skilled workers because even basic manufacturing is becoming more skilled. How can we make people who are not necessarily going to be software engineers or high-tech VCs, just the people who are going to install solar panels, who are going to be involved in on that sort of that blue-collar work, but on a much higher skilled basis. What can local authorities do to help on that level in terms of, and school districts to basically help perhaps reorient not just higher education, but basic education, K through 12 education, going through high school, so that people have the skills to get hired in manufacturing jobs, because without those skills, they're not going to get hired. May I read?
Well, we need a collaboration across all levels. It's not just the state of California has to be engaged, the local government, with our providers of job training, our organizations like our community colleges and our four-year universities all have to be that. We've started that kind of collaboration in San Jose in order to deliver the people in a position where they can take those jobs. Now, I don't know if we're going to be able to handle all of Tarkin Maynard's jobs this week, but we'll certainly invite him down to the downtown San Jose to talk to the young people down there who just came in from Connecticut, in case there are any more jobs that you've got. But a collaboration across an organized way, focusing on the jobs that are available, because that's something that we don't, as government, inherently know, and so we have to work with industry to make that happen.
My editor is now cut me off.
And can I just very briefly just close with this? Look, this plan, if I may.
And you're not closing. We're going to hear more from you in a moment, but please.
I fear for you then. Thank you.
Good. Lieutenant Governor, thank you. Will you join me in thanking Andrew Ross of the San Francisco Chronicle and our regional clusters panel? I am so impressed with the energy and desire to get California moving stronger. Numerous of you already handed to me on the back of your program that one item that you want us to pass along to the Lieutenant Governor. Please, if you haven't yet filled out the back of your program, it's either recycle it or reuse it. We want you to reuse it. That's one. Second, several of you pulled me aside just now and they said, Lieutenant Governor, how do I get involved in one of the task forces? So in a moment, I'm going to ask you to answer that question. People want to engage. Second, if you enjoyed today, the tinting, the food, the creativity of the setup, the overwhelming generosity of Tarkin Maynard and his team, in addition to thanking Tarkin, I hope I don't embarrass him, Cesar Guetta on Tarkin's team. Cesar? Cesar so far is the only excuse I've heard yet for human cloning. He is amazing. He came out last night. From the seedling, he grew all these redwoods just for today. Cesar, thank you. The Johnny Appleseed of Silicon Valley. Next, check that, September 13th. September 13th. Please mark your calendar, if you may. Santa Clara University, the morning. Game Changers 2012. We are bringing together 20 key thought leaders, interactive dialogues, 3 at a time, with audience interaction heavily. What is one game changer you see in 2012 that's going to make a difference in energy, the environment, education, policy, politics, business climate, and economic competitiveness? It's going to include VCs like Alan Salzman, who was on our earlier panel. It's going to be a book of 18 op-eds from these leaders on game changers, then many of them and others speaking that day. We want you to join us. David Cush from Virgin America is an author. We have all 18 of the op-eds, save one, in hand. We just still haven't received one of those. I can't remember who it was. I can't remember who hasn't yet
I've
turned
been working
in
on other
their
stuff.
op-ed. But join us on September 13th. There's a flyer in your folder. And finally, thanking our sponsors once again for today. In addition to Wise, AT&T, Huawei, SAP, Suntech, Synopsys, Virgin America, and Webcore Builders, we're going to ask two people to come to the stage as the Lieutenant Governor answers that question, how do I get involved in one of the task forces? Two of our 19 real coalition partners, both from Southern California, because we are one state, and we're honored that they flew up. The CEO of the LA Chamber of Commerce, Gary Tobin, the COO of the LA Economic Development Corporation, David Flax. Gary, David, can you come up? As they do, I didn't recognize earlier our dear friend, now former CEO of the San Diego Economic Development Corporation, Julie Meyer-Wright, who worked so hard with the Lieutenant Governor on this effort. Julie, thank you for coming up. I'm going to turn the mic over to Gary and David for a moment of remarks from each, and then the Lieutenant Governor is going to answer that question.
Carl, well, thank you, Carl, for inviting us. If we were in Los Angeles today, the comments from the panelists would be the same comments that you heard right here. Lieutenant Governor, it's long overdue, the conversation that we are having today and have been having over the last 6 months. For too long, California's plan for economic development and job creation was the weather. Even today, when there were a couple of thoughts that people had, what other states were doing, somebody has to say, but their weather isn't as good. It's like it cures all ills, but it doesn't cure all ills. We think in LA that more than any other state in the United States, California has the ability and the resources to control its own economic destiny. We have the natural resources, we have the higher education institutions, we have the capital for investment, and we have the entrepreneurial leadership to grow jobs and build our state, to reduce our high unemployment rate, and to generate new revenue for our state coffers. We need a state economic development department, and we need a state strategic plan for economic development. 2 months ago, as I was preparing testimony for the legislature, I Googled state economic development departments, and 108 down the list was something to do with California. 47 other states came up before California. Every single day we send a message to those of you in this room and throughout our state that the state of California does not care about business. It's an ugly, ugly message. And I'm not sure everybody does it intentionally. It's just, as people have said here today, it's sort of an absence of interest. It's an attitude. And Lieutenant Governor, you have the potential to change that attitude and actually make more of a difference than any lieutenant governor has probably made in this great state. We have to do the same thing at the state level that you have to do in your companies. We have to have focus and we have to have speed. We have to focus our resources so that we can create jobs and job opportunities. And speed, we need to find a way of streamlining the permitting and the regulations that we have in our state. We have the ability to do all of these. And All it takes is a commitment from those of us in this room. It takes a plan. It takes a Department of Economic Development, and it takes political courage. Yes, you hear a lot of elected officials talk about the importance of job creation. The challenge is to have them say, we need more jobs without the caveat at the end. Without saying, we need more jobs as long as they're green tech jobs. We need more jobs as long as they're union jobs. We need more jobs as long as they're in my community or not here or somewhere else. Our focus has to be on jobs and job creation, because that's how we change this state for the long term. Thank you very much, and I'm sure David and I are both committed, Carl, to working with the 35 legislators that we have in LA County.
Oh, my word. And Gary Tobin, thanks for your statewide leadership. We're glad we stole you from Kentucky and brought you to California many years ago. David Flax.
Thank you, Carl. And first and foremost, I want to thank Carl, the Silicon Valley Leadership Group, Weiss Technology, and Tarkan for this great event. It's so important. Mr. Lieutenant Governor, on behalf of the Los Angeles County Economic Development Corporation and our $500 billion economy, I want to say thank you. It's about time to reiterate what Gary just said. With our state's unemployment being second in the nation, 12%, we are desperate for a state-led strategy to revive our struggling communities and residents from their jobless nightmare. We, down in LA County, recently engaged in a similar process. We created the first ever countywide consensus strategic plan for economic development. To date, we have received endorsements of 84 of the 88 cities in LA County, and we are in our second year of implementation. However, I'd be remiss if I did not point out two lessons learned that we learned during our process creating LA County's strategic plan for economic development. The first is consensus. In our case, we engaged over 1,080 different stakeholder organizations, labor, business, environmental groups, faith-based organizations, down to the neighborhood councils, all to help develop and create consensus around that plan. That's lesson one. We need to develop support up and down the state for this California plan. The second, and it's easy, implementation. We knew in LA County that just putting ideas down on a piece of paper, not going to go anywhere. We need to be vigilant about implementation. That's why we created a strategy with accountability, measurements of success, and implementation champions. We need to do the same thing here. The LEDC stands committed to working with you in partnership and everyone here so we can all take responsibility for the health and vibrancy of our own communities. Thank you.
David, you just nailed it on implementation. So, Lieutenant Governor, back to the question.
Thank you.
How do these CEOs join your task forces?
Well, once again, Carl, thank you for all your leadership and stewardship. We thank Targan again and the incredible hospitality that you have shown in your team today. We're grateful for that. Let me again acknowledge Brookings and McKinsey. I want to thank Eve Maldonado for her stewardship and my team, my office that worked tirelessly on this, and Chris and Merrick, thank you from Brookings who took the time to file our way out here, and Lenny, thank you at McKinsey, to Eric McAfee who helped fund this, to the entire Silicon Valley Leadership Group that stepped up and stepped in, the leadership in Sacramento, including the governor himself, that's looking forward to reviewing this in detail, and we hope announcing his strong support and his embrace so that we can get to the next level. Just briefly, so often is the case when everything is said and done, more is said than actually done. And I understand that. The purpose and intent of this is not to argue for solvency. It's to make a case once again for California's greatness. And we know that California's greatness came fundamentally because of our education system, which spawned innovation, manufacturing, and a vibrant middle class. All four of those things are challenged in this current environment. We have got to turn that around. I'm one of those folks that understands it's not conditions that determine our fate and future, it's decisions. This is our moment. This is our opportunity. And I am committed, not interested, to working with each and every one of you to answer the call and the great challenge of our time here in the state. and ask you, in answer to Carl's question, to participate now in the real work that is in front of us and inside of every one of you. And that is to participate in these action teams and this action agenda with a concentrated, focused, and creative effort that will bring us to a summit in the first quarter of next year. I will reach out to all of you by email, and you have mine, which is simply my office up in Sacramento and the Lieutenant Governor's office. You just Google my name in the office and you'll get to us, and we're setting up an interactive website to populate your ideas and move forward with the next steps. But we will be in touch, we will be in contact, and please, please take the opportunity to participate so that we're not back here with the next Lieutenant Governor talking about the same damn thing. Thank you all very, very much.